Call of Cthulhu is the most famous work of a one Howard Phillips Lovecraft, a pulp fiction writer who popularized the field of cosmic horror. His work was indeed so influential that it spawned the term Lovecraftian to describe any work about unknowable cosmic entities with a vaguely fishy smell. Xbox's 2005 Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth adapts mostly the Call of Cthulhu and the Shadow over Innsmouth novels into a single tale that really serves you up the very best of what Lovecraft's style of cosmic horror has to offer. The story takes place in the most Lovecraftian setting possible, 1920s Innsmouth, New England, during a series of dark and stormy nights. You could not hit the nail on the head any harder if you tried. There is just something about the roaring 20s that makes the town of Innsmouth seem old enough that an isolated town of fish people could be plausible, but just modern enough to be relatable. The 20s were simply peak Lovecraft, and for that reason, I think a lot of people will be turned off. Most gamers are just not feeling the 20s, and I get that. However, Dark Corners is for those who want an authentic Lovecraftian experience, not a more modern one. A new national grocery chain has just opened in Innsmouth, and the manager mysteriously goes missing. You play the detective sent in to find out what's going on in the spooky, backwards town full of inhospitable and oddly fishy-looking people. As your investigation takes you closer to the truth, you risk the danger of all-out madness, and this only gets worse until eventually you find yourself trying to escape a waking nightmare and foil the Elder God's insidious plans, hopefully while keeping your sanity intact. I can say so much more about the story, but I won't. Dark Corners is one of the handful of games I have played where the best part is genuinely the story, and trust me, you're going to want to experience it for yourself. I can't remember the last time I played a game where I was so invested in what would happen next. Oh, and light spoilers, but this story goes big, like FBI, Coast Guard, US Navy big. Herbert freaking Hoover is a character in this game. Unlike more modern Cthulhu titles, this is not a small caper about cultists and determined private eyes. This one is grand. Dark Corners plays for all the marbles. The game itself is functionally a first-person shooter. A shooter where you do not get a gun until nearly a third of the way into the game. However, it doesn't feel odd, since the game is paced more like a film than an action title. There's a prologue, then lots of build-up until things start to get actually dangerous. The tension in the town of Innsmouth builds steadily, as you can feel the townsfolk starting to glare at you menacingly as you walk around, and as you catch glimpses of someone or something watching you from the shadows. The lack of weapons makes you feel vulnerable, and the first-person perspective draws you in, almost like you're playing a movie. Dark Corners involves light detective work in the form of puzzles that need to be completed in order to progress. Not a big deal with online walkthroughs on YouTube, so the game has never been more accessible. The game has some open sandbox elements, dialogue opportunities, lore to uncover, and of course, combat. Combat is a weakness for Dark Corners. You can't line up hits with a melee weapon or shots with a gun as easily as you should be able to. And the absence of any type of HUD makes the game much more immersive and much harder to aim. The plus side is that Dark Corners is not a hard game on your first playthrough. Harder difficulties have to be unlocked, but I doubt most players would brave Innsmouth for a second time, so the combat is clunky but pretty easy overall. There are some difficulty spikes, like when you get ambushed in your hotel room, but these are few and far between. One unique element is that the game will mess with your vision, control, and audio when you face danger. Imagine having a panic attack and seeing everything get blurry. Very immersive, unnerving, and a little bit annoying. But the random shrieks you hear do get me almost every time. Gameplay alternates between being pants-poopingly terrifying and giving you somewhat clunky first-person shooter gameplay, complete with respawning enemies that will just keep coming, depleting your limited resources until you get past a certain point. Well, that's about it. Just a short, pithy review today, but I really liked Dark Corners. I have always been fascinated by Lovecraft and even read some of his work. but Dark Corners really makes you feel like you're living one of his grim tales. The game is as good as in-game storytelling gets. You just never know what's around the next corner, and you deeply want to find out, even if the next corner you turn may just be your last.
It's locked.
We'll be protected inside.